Welcome back to the Deep Dive, where we take the stack of sources you share with us, the articles, the research, the surprising connections, and distill them down to pure, unforgettable insight.
Hello again.
Today, we are immersing ourselves completely in a really highly localized drama. We're looking at the secrets simmering just beneath the surface of a seemingly quiet, sun-drenched Florida community known as Happiness Key.
It's an incredible set of documents, really. It's so intensely focused on this idea of personal transformation, but it's triggered almost entirely by, unexpected external conflict and critically by a body.
Right.
So our mission here is to trace the precise arc of how the lives of three fundamentally different women — we've got Tracy, Wanda, and Janya — were just irrevocably changed.
And they end up solving a decades-old mystery they really wanted no part of.
None at all. And all while fighting a local bully they certainly never asked for. So yeah, we're tracking how chaos really forced them to build genuine purpose.
Okay, let's unpack this and start with the setting, because the sources paint a very specific, almost contradictory picture of this Florida location.
They really do.
We're on Palmetto Grove Key, which is on Florida's Gulf Coast.
Right.
And we're immediately thrown into this, sizzling May heat. It feels like full summer in this mixed environment of mangroves and choked canals and the lingering possibility of luxury views.
Right, the possibility. But for our main character, Tracy Deloche, this is definitely not a picturesque retirement.
Not even close.
Far from it. The sources make it clear that Tracy is the newly divorced owner of Happiness Key. It's this struggling property she inherited from her ex-husband, CJ.
And we should mention the descriptor the sources use for him.
Oh, yeah, it's very specific. A colorful felon. That's the exact phrase. He's currently residing in Victorville Federal Prison, so this inheritance, for her, it's a burden, not a blessing.
So what's her state of mind when we first meet her?
Her initial state is one of just intense resentment, abandonment, and real financial insecurity. She feels like she's been transported to a mosquito-ridden swamp.
Wow.
Yeah, and having lost the cushion of her former life, she's now forced to, and this is a quote, grovel for money to buy groceries. So she's not trying to thrive here. She's managing the place to prevent vandalism and keep it minimally viable.
Just keeping the lights on.
Yeah.
And the reason she can't just cut her losses, sell this place, and go back to her more glamorous life is, well, it's the property dispute, which is really foundational to her whole story.
Absolutely. CJ's grand vision, before his incarceration was to develop a Chi-Chi luxury condominium complex and a marina.
It's supposed to be a huge speculative cash cow.
That's the key context. This was never meant to be some sleepy little community. The plan was to rip it out and replace it with, big money.
But the legal mess is just,
Right on up there.
it's a nightmare.
It's monumental. The sources describe the opposition not just as local resistance, but as titanic. The property is completely tied up in legal battles. It's facing exhaustive scrutiny from, and I quote, every single government and private bureaucracy in Florida.
And this is where those specific environmental details become so critical. It's not just one group. We're talking about wild Florida.
A major player.
Fierce environmentalists protecting those mangrove ecosystems. And then the curveball, concerns about an old Indian mound on the property.
Exactly.
What does that detail, the Indian mound, what does that tell us about how complicated this opposition really is?
Well, it tells you that CJ, the original developer, either massively underestimated the local resistance, the historical and environmental resistance, or, maybe he just intentionally bypassed all these considerations.
Just figured he could steamroll them.
Probably. The opposition isn't monolithic, you see. It's a layered defense. Wild Florida, they care about the wetlands and biodiversity. The historic preservationists, they care about the mound.
And if that mound is confirmed to be culturally significant.
Oh, it changes everything. It immediately invokes federal protections and makes development virtually impossible. So CJ's entire grand plan is essentially frozen in amber by layers and layers of red tape, environmental, historical, and governmental.
So Tracy's in this impossible position. She knows she owns something objectively valuable. It's waterfront property in Florida.
Right.
But she can't sell it, she can't develop it, and she just has to hang on until the economy or the legal battles or, some miracle occurs.
She's stuck with a valuable mosquito-ridden mess that she can only dream will one day become those manicured lawns, vivid hibiscus, and soaring condominiums he promised her.
She's in total stasis, just waiting.
Precisely. She is waiting for life to start again, and that waiting is waiting. It's violently interrupted by the sudden, entirely unexpected death of Herb Kraus.
Her was a long-term tenant, right? One of the old guard of Happiness Key.
Yeah. And this death is the catalyst. It's the required event that forces Tracy, the bitterly reluctant landlady, to actually engage with the property and, more importantly, with her neighbors.
So she and Janya Kapoor, who is her quiet, homesick academic neighbor from India, they find Herb dead in his cottage.
And the sources note he died lonely. And for you, the listener, what's immediately fascinating here is the radical contrast between Tracy's reaction and Janya's.
Tracy is instantly focused on the practical nightmare.
The administrative side.
Yeah.
The funeral director, the lease, the paperwork. What do I do now?
But Janya, who is so culturally displaced, she immediately brings this profound human element to the tragedy.
She does. She lights incense to make the house smell better. And this simple, compassionate act, it bridges their vast cultural differences. It's really the first act of genuine community service either of them has performed on the key.
It acknowledges the man, not just the body of the problem to be solved.
Exactly. And that compassion is immediately met with a big administrative wall. The funeral director needs kin, but Herb's lease is blank. No emergency contact, no family listed, nothing.
And the cottage itself, it's described as sadly neat.
Which means there's no sign of chaos or a struggle, but it also means there are no easy clues. It's anonymous.
And this is where the mystery officially kicks off.
Right. In that tidy, anonymous space, they find the single pivotal clue. A stack of documents belonging to another man entirely, a man named Clyde Franklin.
So Herb Krause has essentially died with someone else's identity in his pocket.
And in doing so, he forces these three women, Tracy, Janya, and soon Wanda, into this completely unexpected role as detectives.
That sets the stage perfectly for how their lives begin to intersect, and it pushes them way beyond their comfortable silos and straight into our next section, unraveling the mystery.
And what a brilliant contrast the sources draw between Tracy's initial approach, this aggressive attempt at detection, and the actual successful investigative work they eventually do as a team.
Oh, they absolutely do. Tracy starts by trying to apply her, her California urgency to this slow-moving Florida situation, and it backfires immediately.
The only leads they have come from Wanda Gray, who suggests Herb used to play chess in Grambling Park with other retirees. You can just picture this quiet, sedentary Florida life.
So Tracy goes there, armed with the heavy reality that Herb's remains are just waiting for cremation, and she tries to question these men who have, as the source says, all the time in the world.
And the confrontation is a complete, painful failure. She's met not just with indifference, but with outright hostility and resentment.
They just don't care.
Not at all. When she pushes them for information, these old men respond with the ultimate dismissal. They say, chess was a game. Nothing happened if a move got interrupted. Their priorities are totally divorced from Tracy's. They're focused on the geometry of the board, not the messy business of a lonely man's death.
The sources capture her reaction so perfectly. This culminates in her just losing her temper, flipping the card table, and scattering the entire tableau, the royalty, the pawns, everything into the grass.
And she immediately regrets it. She describes her frustration as an annoying buzz, a signal that her old, impulsive, privileged self is still lurking just beneath the surface of this new, struggling Tracy.
It's a necessary failure, though, isn't it? It teaches her that solving this mystery requires collaboration and patience, not just, bulldozing her way through.
Absolutely. But she doesn't quit. She gets a crucial first break by tracking down a former landlord, which is a much more official, sensible, investigative move, who leads her to a Pastor Fred in Kentucky.
And what does he say?
Pastor Fred confirms two things. One, Herb was secretive. And two, he once mentioned having a daughter out of state. It's small, but it's a vital confirmation that kin exists somewhere.
So now the focus shifts entirely to the original mystery, the identity hidden in those documents. The search for Clyde Franklin becomes the central investigative thread.
And this is where the dynamic among the three women, Tracy, Wanda, and Janya, really starts to solidify into an effective team.
Because they realize, horrifyingly, that they might have literally thrown away a vital clue.
It's Wanda who remembers it. Wanda, the detail-oriented key lime baker, she remembers seeing a newspaper clipping in the trash bag that Tracy had discarded earlier that day.
Which leads to one of the most unexpected, frankly absurd scenes in the entire source material.
The trash run, yeah. For you, the listener, you just have to imagine this scene. Tracy, the former socialite, Wanda, the detective's wife, and Janya, the academic, chasing a municipal trash truck down a Florida street.
It's incredible.
And Wanda, leveraging her neighborhood authority and maybe, some lingering spousal police training, performs this aggressive intervention. She stops the truck, forces the collectors to retrieve the correct bag for them.
Threatening to call your boss and complain if they don't comply.
It's the moment they fully commit to the messiness of this new life. They are literally digging through garbage, which is a profound contrast to their polished or academic pasts.
And their effort pays off.
It does. They find the clipping, and it details the death of a Louise Franklin, a Palmetto Grove widow, whose husband, Clyde, died in 1951. And crucially, Louise had one daughter.
The puzzle's aligning. Clyde had a daughter. Herb had a daughter.
Right. So Tracy then uses her smarts to go the official route again. She gets Clyde's death certificate. This confirms his identity and his age. He was born in 1928, but it contains this vital contradiction.
What's that?
His death in 1951 was reported as unknown by his wife, Louise.
Unknown?
Yeah, declared dead, but the cause was mysteriously reported. This just screams abandonment and a deliberate disappearance, not a confirmed death.
So there was no body, she just had him declared dead.
That's what it looks like. And the final decisive link comes from some real shoe-leather detective work. Based on a hint that Herb used to tend bar at a place called Gasparilla's, Wanda and Janya visit an old Florida bar called the Sea Breeze in Cargo Beach.
And they talk to a guy named Ralph.
They do, and Ralph remembers Clyde Franklin, and he tells them the whole messy truth.
And the truth is both tragic and utterly banal, really.
It is. Ralph confirms Clyde Franklin was a former bartender, but he was, in his words, mixed up, a boozer, and he ran off with a gorgeous cocktail waitress named Gloria Madsen.
And in doing so, he abandoned his wife and his young daughter.
Right. So Louise later had him officially declared dead, probably for closure, maybe for financial or legal reasons. Herb Krause was Clyde Franklin, living a secret second life in self-imposed exile for decades.
Wow.
And the sources make a point of detailing the aftermath. Clyde, or Herb, he had abandoned his family, but his conscience often troubled him. This is a fact they confirm when they later track down the waitress, Gloria Madsen. She's now residing in a rundown halfway house for ex-cons.
So the running hurt everyone, including the runner.
It did. But the truly meaningful resolution comes when their persistent efforts lead them back to a place called Pelican Way and to a Katie Bishop Ayers, who is Louise's granddaughter.
So Clyde's granddaughter.
Exactly. She is living in Louise's old house, which is owned by her mother, Camilla Bishop Clyde, or Herb's estranged daughter.
So after all this relentless, surprising effort by strangers, Herb's remains can finally be handled by his family.
The essential duty that Tracy felt obligated to fulfill is finally completed. The messy, unwanted truth is uncovered. It's a remarkable piece of investigative synthesis, you know? It combines bureaucratic persistence, some low-level criminality like stopping a trash truck, and a lot of emotional intelligence.
And the conclusion of the mystery itself isn't glamorous at all. It's just a sad story of a man who ran away.
Exactly. But the process of solving it became the crucible for the women's self-discovery.
That's a brilliant point, that the mystery was merely the vehicle. Because what makes this deep dive so rich is that as they are chasing the ghost of Herb Krause, these women are simultaneously rebuilding their own foundations. And they're often doing it through intensely physical or emotionally risky work that directly counters their previous identities. Let's start with Tracy Deloche, moving from this glamorous socialite to a woman with, calloused hands.
Tracy's transition is fundamentally rooted in physical labor, which is completely antithetical to her former soft-handed life.
Right.
The sources dedicate significant detail to her intensely focused labor of installing tile in her own cottage. She describes this grueling process not as renovation, but as scrubbing away the past 2 years of her life with CJ.
It's almost like a ritualistic penance for her former existence.
It is. This isn't just DIY, it's therapeutic. She finds this visceral sense of accomplishment in the repetitive, difficult work. She realizes she could fix this floor, a small, tangible, measurable victory that her former life, filled with yacht club memberships and endless leisure, never ever provided.
The floor literally becomes the foundation of her new self.
And that accomplishment provides a really sturdy launch pad for her career shift. She ends up landing a job as the rec program supervisor.
Finally, using her bachelor's degree in recreation, which was previously ignored.
Exactly, and she finds a surprising natural skill for management and for engaging with the community, something she never sought in her old exclusive circles.
The sources highlight her particular success in managing challenging young campers, specifically Marsh Egan's son, Bay, whom she affectionately calls a missile.
Yeah.
So what's the significance of her thriving in this chaotic, messy, community center environment?
It proves she has moved beyond her superficiality. I mean, running a rec center, it requires improvisation, diplomacy, and genuine engagement. She's not managing servants or planning galas anymore. She's
Mhm.
managing staff, resolving disputes, and providing structure to kids like Bay who desperately need it. She finds authority and purpose in chaos, and that validates her choice to stay and fight rather than retreat.
Okay, now we pivot to Wanda Gray, whose transformation is purely internal and secret. She's the talented, opinionated, reliable friend and neighbor, known for her phenomenal key lime and grapefruit pies.
Made from scratch, no less.
Of course. But she also operates a secret phone sex side business called SEDUCE.
The irony is just crushing. She is performing a caricature of intimacy selling suggestive conversation and emotional validation to lonely men, specifically to sock away funds for a divorce.
Because of the total lack of genuine intimacy in her real life.
Exactly. And this secrecy is born from immense shared marital trauma. Her husband, Ken, is a police detective and he is emotionally absent. He's described as being thousands of miles away due to the crushing guilt of a fatal on-the-job shooting of a drug dealer in Cutler Bay 18 months prior.
And the sources imply this incident has just completely shattered his inner world and their connection.
It has, and this is the emotional core of the story. And the twist is, it's devastating. Wanda develops a genuine, anonymous emotional bond with one specific client whom she calls Shadow.
And he's trapped by regret, unable to communicate his inner torment.
Right, and she provides him a safe, private space to confess, and the ultimate realization that Shadow is Ken pouring out his emotional turmoil not to his wife, but to a paid, anonymous voice on the phone. It forces an immediate and necessary crisis.
So this scene, which takes place on the beach, it becomes their raw, necessary confrontation.
It does. Ken is forced to confess the true extent of his struggles, the guilt, the post-traumatic isolation. And Wanda, realizing the profound cost of their mutual silence, admits her job was mostly just listening to lonely old men desperate for connection.
Mirroring Ken's own isolation.
Exactly. And their exchange, it culminates in Ken's heartfelt, slightly broken declaration, "We're some pair, aren't we?" And that becomes the foundation of their renewed marriage.
It's a recommitment built not on some romantic fantasy, but on painful, ugly, sensual honesty.
They both had to step outside the bounds of their marriage, paradoxically, to find their way back in.
Finally, we turn to Janya Kapoor. Her transition is heavily influenced by cultural displacement and a very painful past.
Yeah, she struggles profoundly with adjustment in polite Palmetto Grove. She misses India, the chaotic warmth of her complex family who, prioritize her sister Padmini and tradition, and she's navigating her successful but often lonely arranged marriage to Rishi.
And her homesickness is constantly articulated through her observations of the Florida environment.
It is. She notes the stark difference between Palmetto Grove and Mulund, the suburb of Mumbai where she was raised. She uses the banyan tree as a cultural anchor, contrasting Florida's lack of history with the weight of her past.
She specifically recalls Vedic texts and rituals she no longer wishes to participate in.
Right, like fasting and praying to be rewarded with the same husband in her next life. She's actively rejecting these traditional obligations that bind her.
But the past refuses to let go. Her former love, Darshan, literally arrives in Florida.
And that forces Janya to confront a deeply painful possibility about the events that led to her marriage in the first place.
This is a major betrayal.
A huge one. The sources reveal that Janya is forced to confront the idea that her public humiliation, these embarrassing photos and a website that were circulated, which precipitated her quick, successful arranged marriage to Rishi, was actually engineered by Darshan and her own cousin, Padmini.
That's immense manipulation within her own family structure.
It is. And Darshan, of course, tries to win her back, claiming he couldn't forget her. But Janya, who's been empowered by her new community and her growing self-awareness, she sees the transparent truth.
She realizes he's still planning to marry Padmini, and his appearance is rooted purely in his own self-absorption and vanity.
Exactly. And her rejection of him isn't just personal. It is a profound rejection of the cultural expectations and manipulation that defined her transition to Florida. She rejects Darshan completely, telling him the feast of lies he helped create is over. And that act frees her entirely.
And she immediately channels that freedom into creative, permanent work. She finds a new purpose in art.
First, teaching local children to paint a mural at the rec center, a project that expands her own creative vision, making her dream of painting these intense, complicated jumble scenes in her own cottage.
And this culminates in her securing a major commission for a mural at the main library.
And we shouldn't overlook the highly practical, symbolic steps she takes. She gets her driver's license with Wanda's help.
Which is huge. Wanda, despite her initial skepticism and some, judgmental comments about Janya's culture, helps her achieve this independence.
It's a concrete step away from relying entirely on Rishi and towards securing a real life here in Florida. The three women, through these massive personal overhauls, have become an unlikely, tightly knit, and essential support network.
And that support network is immediately mobilized when they face the secondary but equally urgent conflict, the Semington problem.
Right. Involving Alice Brooks, her sinister son-in-law Lee, and the necessary introduction of a hidden camera.
This arc brilliantly demonstrates how the skills and trust they gained through the mystery and their personal rebuilding are immediately put to use for the benefit of their community.
Lee Symington is the definition of a parasite. He has taken financial control of Alice's assets, leveraging his family position.
And his method of control it's slow, it's insidious erosion. He tells Alice that the stock market has taken a beating and points to vague irregularities in her accounts.
And he's forcing this elderly woman to grovel for small amounts of money, like $20, just to buy clothing on sale. He makes her feel guilty and dependent.
But Tracy, who is now operating with a sharp eye of skepticism, learned from her time with a colorful felon.
Exactly. She observes red flags everywhere. Lee drives an expensive new BMW Roadster, which completely contradicts the story of financial distress.
And more critically, she learns from Maribel, another local realtor, that Lee was fired for being dishonest and having a serious temper.
Yeah, Maribel even admitted she feared his retaliation, so the financial abuse is rapidly turning into something much more dangerous.
The intervention becomes mandatory when the evidence moves from financial suspicion to a physical, emotional attack. Tracy finds Alice's intricate, painstakingly crocheted heirloom tablecloth.
Which was intended for her granddaughter Olivia's hope chest.
It's torn up and stuffed carelessly in the trash can.
That tablecloth is so crucial. It's a physical manifestation of Alice's character, her legacy, her love for her granddaughter. Destroying it is entirely inconsistent with Alice's personality. It's a clear sign that Lee's psychological abuse had escalated into destructive, aggressive control.
It's the irrefutable evidence that compels the women to action.
It is. They decide they need proof of the abuse, leading to another moment of high irony that connects back to Wanda and Ken's newly renewed marriage.
Ken, the detective, provides the required surveillance equipment.
A granny cam, disguised brilliantly as an air freshener. It's a highly sophisticated, impounded spy toy he liberated from a case.
The irony is just delicious. The man who used a paid anonymous service to confess his trauma is now providing state-of-the-art surveillance equipment to fight injustice.
And the installation is high stakes. Tracy uses the pretense of installing smoke detectors, a quick solution Jenya suggested, to get inside Alice's cottage. And she finds Alice in this weakened, possibly sedated state. She's isolated and unresponsive.
The moment of absolute crisis occurs when Tracy is leaving. She's almost out the door when she hears Alice whisper the desperate plea, "Help me."
Chilling.
And then immediately, she hears Lee's expensive car returning unexpectedly. Tracy knows she has to retrieve that camera before he finds the evidence, but she can't get away.
So she races back inside and is discovered by Lee. The confrontation escalates immediately. He starts to get physical, intent on silencing her and maintaining control.
But the women, anticipating the danger, had already alerted Ken.
And Ken, making a definitive choice between his guilt-ridden past and his present duty, arrives at the perfect dramatic moment.
He intervenes just as Lee is about to strike Tracy and Alice. In this scene, it's the final validation of Ken's rehabilitation. He acts decisively.
Not with the trigger-happy uncertainty of the man who shot the drug dealer 18 months ago, but as a good cop with a clear conscience defending the innocent. Lee is subsequently taken away by authorities.
And this resolution has immediate, profound ripple effects. Once she's free from Lee's control, a control that included active efforts to isolate her and fabricate financial problems, Alice improves remarkably.
She regains her clarity, her vitality, and she finds immediate constructive purpose teaching crochet at the rec center, sharing her craft with the community.
It proves that connection and purpose, the very things the three women found for themselves, were the antidote to Lee's poison of isolation.
Absolutely.
So, by the time we reach the conclusion, nearly every major conflict, both external and internal, has been resolved, or at least placed firmly on a manageable path. Let's start with the central issue that brought Tracy to the key in the first place, the seemingly impossible property conflict.
The fate of Happiness Key is finally sealed by Marsh Egan. He's the cynical environmentalist whom Tracy initially fought tooth and nail, but with whom she has now developed a very close relationship.
And Marsh presents Tracy with Wild Florida's conservation easement papers. This is the final proposal, and it represents a complete reversal of Tracy's original goal.
It does.
Okay, so let's slow down and define this legal concept for the listener, because it's the key to the entire resolution. What exactly does a conservation easement entail in this context? What does Tracy gain versus what does she give up?
Well, a conservation easement is essentially a legal tool where a landowner voluntarily agrees to restrict the use of their property for conservation purposes. So in this case, it means preserving the wetlands and the mangroves.
So what she gives up is the speculative, enormous future profit from developing those chi-chi luxury condos and the marina.
That dream is officially dead. But what she gains is certainty. She gets immediate financial relief through tax breaks and, quote, decent money. And she gets the right to keep the land and the cottages as they are.
So it's a definitive choice. It's prioritizing stability, environmental protection, and community over just pure capital gain.
Right. Happiness Key is preserved as wetlands and cottages, allowing Tracy to improve the existing property and enjoy the life she has unexpectedly built there. It signals the true end of her quest to just sell out and escape.
And this legal and financial resolution provides the perfect grounding for all the personal victories to solidify into permanent new beginnings.
It does.
Tracy and Marsh, they move into a new phase of their relationship. They accept their fundamental differences, the glamorous former California socialite versus the cynical, pragmatic environmentalist.
And they find common ground, including raising Marsh's son, Bay, who's now engaged in youth camp activities. The source notes their relationship now holds acres of promise built on mutual respect rather than just a shared background.
And Wanda and Ken's marriage is completely renewed. It's now based on radical honesty and mutual support, replacing that vast emotional distance that plagued them.
Ken, having faced his demons and proven his courage by saving Alice, is finally truly home. And Wanda realizes that this new marriage, with both of them talking and trying together, might just offer the best years of all because it's built on truth.
Finally, Janya, having secured her artistic future with the library commission painting walls and creating community, finds this profound contentment.
She embraces her culinary and cultural identity with Rishi, who now encourages her to cook the food she understands and loves, even if it smells different from American fare.
So the shift is complete. She has integrated her heritage into her new home, rather than suppressing it to fit in.
These three women, who started as disparate, mistrustful neighbors, the lonely landlady, the estranged cop's wife, and the homesick academic, have forged an enduring, messy bond. The sources describe them as neighbors who, somehow, while no one was watching, became more than that.
They became a functional, essential family.
They did.
The final gathering at Alice's house is the symbolic capstone of this new community. Alice, recovered, clear-minded, and confident, gives each woman a bundle of yarn and crochet instructions.
It's a beautiful gift. It signifies the passing of shared purpose and tradition among the now tightly knit group. They are no longer isolated individuals. They are woven together.
Which brings us to the final, provocative thought for you, the learner, to consider as you wrap up this deep dive.
The man who catalyzed this entire transformation was Herb Krauss. Or, I should say, Clyde Franklin.
Right. He spent decades hiding from a messy life in his own conscience, driven by shame and the desire for solitude, only to die alone.
Forcing strangers to organize his final arrangements and confront the past he ran from.
So, given the immense value and fulfillment the three women, Tracy, Wanda, and Janya, found only by embracing their messy, difficult, non-private relationships, we have to ask, was the price Herb paid for that ultimate solitude just too high?
What are the inherent unseen risks of seeking ultimate privacy and running from emotional complexity? It's a powerful final reflection on the value of community versus the promise of anonymity.
Thank you for joining us for this deep dive into Happiness Key. We'll see you next time.